Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Believe in Bengal podcast. I'm your host, Solomon Wilcots, and today we have a very special guest, former Cincinnati Bengal, 9-year NFL Pro Bowl cornerback, Eric Thomas. Eric E.T. Thomas joining us on the show. E.T., what's up, my friend? How you doing?
Hey, what's going on, Wilcots? How you doing, brother?
Don't get too excited, man. We got some
Okay,
business to
okay,
tend to
okay.
today. Because, look, I want people to know, look, I think you're the perfect person to have on today's show because we're going to talk about the Cincinnati Bengals secondary. You were part of that infamous Bengals SWAT team during the run to the '88 Super Bowl. You had 7 interceptions that season, went to your very first Pro Bowl. And you know what it's like to be a highly drafted player, to come with high expectations, and then have to deliver, right? And have to
Oh
live
yeah.
up to the promise. And it's a huge responsibility. And the Cincinnati Bengals, I think, they have some good players in their secondary. I think that's where the rubber meets the road for this team. First of all, I just want to hear your thoughts on how important it is for the secondary behind guys like Sexy Dex and behind, I think, what is a really good front seven.
Mhm.
How big is the responsibility for the Bengals secondary to live up to the promise this season?
Well, it's huge, Saul. And if you remember when we were drafted that year, they were sort of in that same phase. They had won the year before,
That's right.
barely missed the playoffs, but they had a good team, and they just needed those young players or us to come in and sort of develop and sort of help the team out. I understood being a second round pick, because you'd heard so much about it. All the guys that come into the league, they talk about, what you mean to a team when you're drafted high.
Yeah.
I understood that. I think that early on, I had that pressure of trying to perform that way in training camp. Had some limited success. Once I got to the season, again, I was a young player. I think people saw the struggles and what happens with players making that transition from college to the NFL.
Yeah.
I went through a little bit of that, and I had to deal with some of the media scrutiny from that as well. I was a tough guy mentally, I thought. So the criticism didn't bother me as much. But I think that when you look at the young guys that the Bengals have now, particularly the corners, DJ Turner and Dax Hill, those guys are under the same pressure I was.
Yep.
And here, I think going in year 3 and 4 for those guys, and we've seen again with them some mixed results. You've seen some good plays, you've seen some negative play, and so I think now that the Bengals have sort of empowered those guys to believe that, hey, we think that you guys can be 2 top corners in the league, particularly for our team. And I think when you get empowered that way as a young player, it helps you when the franchise believes in you. And I think when you look at the 2 corners in particular, that's where the rubber is going to sort of meet the road.
Yeah.
We know that in the last couple of years, the safeties have had some issues, but really it comes with the corners. If the corners can hold things down, it makes it easier for your safeties to play, as you know. And so I think that the onus of success for this defense will fall on the corners in particular. Certainly, we know the safeties have to do their job, being 2 new guys from last year. But I think that the corner responsibility, when you talk about big plays, if a team can find a soft spot in your corner position, they're gonna lay there and live there and make plays there. So those 2 guys have to play up to that ability that they expect them to.
Yeah, I want you to walk. In fact, we should tell people that you are also a coach. You coach at Wyoming High
Wyoming
School.
High
You
School,
coach the
yes.
secondary. You've coached at local Cincinnati high schools at Princeton, at Taft.
Yeah.
You're coaching now at Wyoming. You've coached players that have gone on to get scholarships and play
Yeah.
at the next level. So, and you played in the NFL for 9 years, for 9 seasons with some truly great players. So you've had to kind of, live what you preach now, right? And I remember you coming in. You and I came in together as rookies. You were a 2nd round pick. I was an 8th round selection. They wanted you to play immediately. There's no
Mhm.
doubt. And your second game of your career was against a guy by the name of Jerry Rice. And I mean, I can't think of a harder assignment.
Yeah.
At the end of the game, they got you over there on him. We should have probably had somebody else, but he did. He caught a touchdown pass on you. The 49ers went on to win that game. But you did not crawl into a shell. You didn't hide and run. The very next year, you're a Pro Bowl player. So talk to me about how young cornerbacks who are, look, in this league, you're going to give up plays. Somebody's going to beat you
That's right.
sooner
That's
or
right.
later. But that, to me, is the moment of truth where we find out who you really are. What was it about you that allowed you to bounce back from that moment and turn that into a Pro Bowl season the very next year?
Well, I think it comes down to coaching. Coaching. Your coaches have to talk to players. You are going to have some negative plays in this league, particularly when you're young, and sometimes playing the cornerback position. As you know, confidence is so big with that position, and if you lose confidence by giving up plays, give up a touchdown play like I did against Jay Rice, a game-winning touchdown pass, it has an effect on you. I think that after that game, I remember a great thing. I was in the locker room, and you're always sitting there waiting for the media to come in. And if you remember, the media, they'd open the locker rooms and they just bolt towards you like bulls. and I remember those guys coming. And about right when they got to my locker, before the first question really flew out of their mouth, here comes my coach, our coach, Dick LeBeau around the corner. He grabs me.
He saw it.
Says, I need to talk to Eric for a minute. Takes me into the coach's locker room and says, I don't really have anything to talk to you about. I just want to get you away from those guys. And I knew then at that point that I had a coach that was going to be in my corner because he played the same position. He played corner as well. And I think that after that, I know that going into the following weeks, once we came back, had a strike that year. When I came back from the strike, I was a better player. Yeah. I think that mentally I was better because I was assured that my coach was gonna support me through good and bad play. And that was a huge deal for my career because my career could have spiraled the other way after that particular play. But I was hungry. You know that we were both hungry. We just wanted to play more. And I think that as the season went on and I sort of recovered from that, I was more hungry to get on the field and prove that I was ready to play and share and do my part. You and I both were, and we were hungry. We were. And so I think that hunger and the fact that you had a coach that believed in what you were doing. You believe in the work that I was putting in. He would always tell me when I would be walking back to the huddle sometime or walking back in practice, he would walk on the side. He said, "You're going to be good. You just got to keep working at it." Yeah, that's kind of confidence that as a player, and particularly as a young player, playing the position I did, I needed that. And so obviously, we know who the great Dick LeBeau is, but that's what coaches do for me.
Yeah. Coming into that second season, and again, we're talking about the Cincinnati Bengals secondary and just doing some comparison for young players drafted high, these high expectations, because I believe if this secondary plays up to expectation or beyond it, Cincinnati Bengals could have themselves a Super Bowl defense. We already know what they have on offense, and that's kind of how I felt coming into our second season in '88. I looked over there, man, I saw Anthony Munoz. I saw James Brooks, who we're going to talk about here in a little bit. We had Eddie Brown and Tim McGee. Rodney Holman, I thought was the best tight end in the NFL. I don't care what anybody else had to say. I'm practicing against him every day. I knew how good he was. That's right. And we had Chris Collinsworth, obviously, and those guys, but Boomer Esiason. I felt like, man, our offense is pretty good. Yes, and as you well know, that 88 year, Boomer was MVP. Our offense led the league in rushing. And so I kind of felt like, man, if we just do our part,
that's right.
I'm not going to let these other guys down. Like, there ain't no way I'm letting Anthony Munoz and Max Montoya. Those were two guys we kind of looked up to. I'm not letting these dudes down. So that was the mindset. Kind of talk to me about what you think this group of young defensive backs, given what they have on offense, with that same mentality, they could accomplish some great things.
Well, we were lucky, and just like I think these guys are, we got lucky, and we were brought into a building of pros, bunch of pros. Mm-hmm. And so when you're a young player and you're exposed to guys that are true professional football players, and not in the sense that they just line up and play, these guys prepare during the offseason, you watch them prepare. These guys have that same luxury. The front seven of this defense, particularly the defensive front, a lot of experience, a lot of good football. A lot of high drafted players. So you're seeing some guys that have already, made their mark in this league. And so these guys get a chance to go in and really give them that infusion of energy that they need. I think everyone knows what happened last year. I think everyone understands that the last 2 years were defensive flops for this team, whereas one of the years the quarterback had an MVP season. And that really cost them. So I think that these players coming in should understand that, hey, when you look across the ball, you got everything you need on offense. It's all there. Now you guys got to say, hey, let's see if we can hold up our end, go out there and play the kind of defense that we need to, and see if we can lift this team to the greatness that it wants to have. We know we know that the talent's there. There's talent's there. Can they complete it by making sure they get it done with that?
I've already talked to Bengals fans right here on the Believe in Bengal podcast about Brian Cook. He played here, high school locally. You coach in high school, and you got to see him play.
Yeah.
Tell the Bengals fans what kind of player he is, what kind of player are they getting in Brian Cook?
What you want in a safety, you want a guy, the most important thing is consistency. Everyone would love to have an Ed Reed or some player that's going to be an all-pro player like that every year. But this is a guy that when you watch him play, he's always on his job. I think his first couple of years, he was a backup player, but over the last 3-4 years, you've seen him really develop in a full-fledged starter. He's a guy that you don't have to worry about. He's going to be very, very consistent. And I know this, when you watch those last several years, we had inconsistent play at the safety position that netted a lot of big plays for the other team. So here's a guy who's going to bring that calmness back there. He's going to bring intensity, but he's going to bring intelligence as well. And I think that when you have a player like that, he should lift some of those young defensive backs because they know he's going to be where he needs to be. He kind of reminds me of a little bit more athletic Von Bell. Does he have the Von Bell intellect? When you watch him play, he puts himself in a lot of good positions.
That's right.
And that tells me that he understands what he's doing. So I think that they have a chance to really lift at that position because we know over the last couple of years, that's been sort of the Achilles heel of this team is the safety position.
Yeah, and Kyle Duggar, he had played with the New England Patriots out of Lenoir-Rhyne College. This is a dude that's got some thump to him.
Yes,
excellent
he does.
Tackler, just like Brian Cook. These two guys were brought to give this defense, and more importantly, the secondary, some physicality to ensure their ability to improve their missed tackle rate, which was the worst in the NFL last year. And so these guys know how to get you on the ground. When they hit you, you go down. When they wrap you up, you're not getting yards after contact when it comes to these two safeties. So now I want to hear from you, your thoughts. First, let's talk about DJ Hill, because you and I know when we watched him last year, we were really impressed with the way that he competes, right? The year before he got hurt against, I think it was in that game against Dallas. And then, last year you could just see that this was a guy that was really coming on and starting to play almost at a Pro Bowl level.
We talked about him his rookie year. He really struggled. I mean, I think that when I think about him, some of his struggles were a lot like mine. But a half a step slow. And that's just technique, and that's just belief. Then the young lady came on, was having a super good season, broke the collarbone. Ended the season about week 9 or something like that. But we saw in 9 weeks he was improving. And then last year, man, I mean, he took that step that we were talking about. I don't know if you put him in a top flight corners, but I think that in terms of being a very solid NFL starting corner that they can count on and depend on, he's definitely that. This year is the year that if he wants to elevate himself, this is the year that he does it. This is the year that he takes what he did last year and take it a step further. That'll start getting him that Pro Bowl consideration that I think he'd like, and I think it's going to work out good for him.
It's something about playing in the secondary. There comes a time where you've got to play with the kind of swag, with the kind of confidence, where you're not asking for permission. You take what you want. And you know what I'm saying. That is just ingrained in that position because you're already opposite. You're operating at a deficit. All the rules are set against you. Officials are set against you. Wide receivers get to push you. You can't even touch them. Everything's got to set to work against you. And if you're not prepared to handle all of that and still take what you want, it's going to be a long day. And I got the sense that he came around mentally how to play in this league at that position.
That's right. And, and it's funny because when you look at him, one of the things that I thought his first year, and it's even first year, is that the closing on plays.
Oh, you can do that.
Last year, we saw him develop into, I think, one of the top guys in terms of closing on plays and making plays when the ball arrived. That's just technique and discipline. Now, we're talking about a guy that runs 4.3 out of his bed. He jumps up in the morning 4.34. Right. And so what happens is when you have that kind of speed, you have to trust it. I was that kind of guy. I wasn't the most physical, but I think that my speed allowed me to play physical and play fast. Right. And I think that D.A. Turner, when you look at him last year, he really stepped that game up. I mean, it's like almost every single week you saw him making exceptional plays. So I like what he's doing. I hope that Dax Hill understands that, hey, man, if I'm watching DJ make plays, I'm making plays too. And so I think that, even with Lewis Billis and I, the guy who played across from me, Lewis and I understand. I'm watching film. I'm seeing how many plays he's breaking up. And I got to make sure I'm breaking mine up too, because even though he's on your team, you still want to be better than your opposite corner. That's just a competitive thing. It's how you want to be.
We got to tell our listeners this, because you excelled outside, but Dick LeBeau went to you and Lewis Billups, who are our starting corners. He was like, he tried to get Lou to move into nickel.
Right.
Lou didn't really want that smoke. I mean, with all due respect, you embraced it. So and that's really where Dax Hill's kind of been. They're not sure if he's going to be an outside guy. Do they move him down inside? And if he doesn't, then who's going to be the nickel corner? You were a guy during your Pro Bowl year. I think you got most of your 7 interceptions at the nickel position.
Yep.
You got sacks at that position.
That's correct.
So a lot was being asked of you, but you had no problem moving from outside to inside. Help our listeners understand what's required there to make that transition and what you think Dax Hill need to do in order to be that player for the Bengals.
Part of it is just being smart to understand schematically what your coach wants you to do. Everything that you do from inside, it's what the defense allows you to do. You have a little bit more flexibility in there than you would outside because you can't play bad technique outside. You can, play a little inside technique, a little outside technique, play with the receiver's minds a little bit, but it's very difficult. Because you got to understand when you don't have when the receiver doesn't have when you don't have the sideline, that receiver has a two-way going you almost every single snap.
Yeah.
And what happened is I was lucky because we had Dick LeBeau who was so smart, and he talked to me about receiver splits, receivers motions. All those things matter when you're in the slot position.
There you go.
And then you have to understand that when they're motioning, which way they're motioning, what they're trying to do by doing that motion. Yeah. And so for me, having a chance to really understand what we were doing schematically, I was a good enough athlete to play inside and outside. I preferred playing slot. Slot was more fun for me. It seemed like I got more action when I played slot. I played the right corner instead of the left corner. Lewis played left corner. He got most of the action in our regular defense. Yeah. So for me, when I went to nickel, I knew they were throwing the ball to the slot guy. Right. And so it's chance to make a lot of plays there. To me, it's challenging, but it's the most fun you'll ever have playing the position of corner.
There you go.
No doubt.
You're not on an island just sitting there waiting for the game to come to you. You're really more part of the action.
Yes.
There's no doubt about that. So what do you think these two corners, you already talked about DJ Turner. What is it that Dax has to do? And who's going to be our nickel corner in this rotation? Who are some of these other young guys? You have Takario Davis. He's the 3rd-round pick. He's a rookie. You have Jalen Davis, who right now is penciled in as the #1 nickel.
Played good last year.
Josh Newton from TCU. They've had him inside. They had him outside. I love his tenacity.
Yes.
But he needs to become more consistent. Jasir Taylor is a guy that's come over. So we have, they're searching for depth as well as frontline players, right, in the secondary, at least at the corner position.
I think that when you look at all those corners, Newton last year flashed and made some plays. He's just some guys you can look say he's just a football player. He is that. Right. I think that they're going to find a way. He's going to find himself on that field somehow. He kind of reminds me of me. He's not the biggest guy, probably not the fastest guy, but he's got some heart about him. He's going to find a way to get on that football field. Right. And I think that, so to me, if I'm either DJ or Dax, I'm trying to get that slot, man. I am trying to get that slot position because you know why? That can separate you. If you can play inside and you can play outside, it can separate you. You become almost invaluable. And so I think that all those young guys, the guys you mentioned played slot last year, he played good. He's a veteran player, been around for a while. One of those young guys has got to take that position because it's such a super important position. And if you think about what the impact Mike Hilton had, particularly his first 3 years here, made a ton of plays. If any one of those guys can find a way to get themselves in that slot position, man, they're setting you up for tremendous success. You got to want it though. It ain't a position that you're gonna let them throw you in there. And, I don't know if I can do it. You got to want to get in there because you're subject to big plays.
Yeah,
you're subject to big plays when you're in the slot as well. So I think that both of those guys should do it. But Josh Newton, he has the sort of the temperament. If he can tackle the way Mike Hilton was tackling, he could hold that position down. Yeah. Now, third round pick's got some length. I think he's going to be an outside corner. Most longer corners are going to be better outside. That's where Dax, I think, is probably a little bit of disadvantage, being 6 feet tall, a little longer. You don't see the super duper long guys playing in that slot position consistently because you're just susceptible to all kind of different routes, slant routes, seam routes, corner routes. But one of those guys should beg for that position. Now, when Dick suggested to me, I said, I'll take it. I wanted the position because I knew that it was going to be a chance for me to make some plays. I like playing right corner, but because most quarterbacks in the league are right-handed, they're throwing the ball left to our left side. And so I wasn't getting as much action. And I knew that. And so when he said, hey, you want to get into this? I said, I did. And so I think that it'll be interesting to see which one of these guys hunger to get into that position. I think that if they get in that position, Newton's going to be the slot corner, I think, because I think that he has the true corner skills, but he seems like he's physical enough and he don't seem like he's scared to go make plays. And when you play slot corner, there's going to be plays there for you to go get. You got to attack it and go make those plays.
And as you said, from the neck up, the cerebral quotient to that position, playing nickel corner, you got to be dialed in on the splits. You got to be dialed into the run game, into the blitz and pressure game. You got to work with the linebackers. I mean, you're asked to do a lot of things and be a lot of things.
That's right.
When you're playing a nickel corner in that slot to the strong side.
That's right.
Look, it's time for us to talk about the selection of the newly selected players to the Cincinnati Bengals Ring of Honor class of 2026. 10-year Cincinnati Bengal, Bob Trumpy, who played 10 seasons for the Cincinnati Bengals for a long time. This was the guy that sort of defined the position in those early years, right? In the late 60s, early 70s at the tight end position. And still to this day, he holds every record, the most receptions, the most receiving yards, the most touchdowns among Cincinnati Bengals tight ends. Of all the tight ends who played for the organization, he still holds all the records. And you and I both know him because all my years of traveling, calling games for CBS and working for the networks and ESPN, I would find myself on a flight with Bob Trumpy. And you could hear that golden voice anywhere, right? He'd be in first class. I'd be somewhere way back in coach. And I could hear that voice, Solomon, come up here, sit with me. And he was such a kind and wonderful person. He knew so much about the game. And I'm going to miss him. And I'm glad to see him enshrined into the Bengals Ring of Honor.
Very, very happy about that, man.
Yeah.
When we came here and I particularly went to the Super Bowl, we started rolling pretty good. And, that was probably the first time that, I had been exposed to going and being on talk radio with anyone. And so we go over to the studios, we walk in there and it's dark. And I'm thinking, is this how they do radio? I didn't know they did radio in the dark.
He did.
He's sitting in the dark, and as soon as we open the door, smoke just billows and hits us in the face. Like, you can smoke in the studio too? I mean, I am stunned about all of this. And then we go in there, and we are in there talking to the realest of the realest guys you could ever meet. New football in and out. So super smart. Yeah. And he would tell you what he knew, and he was right most of the time. Yeah, and he was never vile, never mean. He said he just tells it like it is. He was so fantastic, man. And you think about the voice, just iconic. The personality, super iconic. Yeah. Love Bob Trumpy. So deserving. So deserving. I wish that he was here to see it, but nonetheless, he's very deserving of getting it. I'm happy for him. Really happy.
Yeah, I was just with him over a year ago. We were at a Ken Anderson event. He and I were on stage together, and we got to tell those stories how I would be at the Monday night game working for ESPN after doing the sideline for the Sunday night game. I would have to get on a flight early the next morning, get to that city for the Monday night game. And he was calling the game on Westwood One Radio. Right. And I was doing the post reporting. I did all the pregame hits for Sports Center. And then after the game, the game's over at like 12 or 1 in the morning. You're getting back to your hotel. And then we get the first flight back to Cincinnati. And there was Bob Trumpy out in front of the hotel. So was I, getting to the airport, flying home together. And we spent so much time together in our flights, in our travels, just making it back to Cincinnati after working the Monday night game, that we became very close friends. And I had always admired him as a broadcaster. I wouldn't dare tell him that, but I did. And he was so generous with his advice on career and things of that nature. And so I'm going to miss him. And I'm so happy for his family. As you well know, he played on those early Bengals teams starting in 1968. His last year at the Bengals and in the league was 1977. And he became one of the great faces of the Cincinnati Bengals franchise. And so he's now rightfully finding his place in the Bengals Ring of Honor. The next guy to go in, who played 8 seasons in the National Football League and played for the Cincinnati Bengals, I should say, for 8 seasons. James Brooks. Now, JB was the man. I'm going to allow you to tell your story because when we first arrived here in 87, JB was a mean son of a gun. And he did not like rookies. He wouldn't even let people talk to him.
That's right.
I only remember 2 guys ever being able to have a conversation with him, and that was you and I. For whatever reason. But he was a mean son of a gun.
He was, man.
I'll allow you to weigh in and tell your JB stories, man.
Let me tell you something. Just like I've always told people this. I said he's just one of the toughest football players you've ever seen in your life. And I told people, I said the league got very lucky. If James Brooks weighed 230 pounds, he would have had everyone scared because he was out there not playing any games. I'll tell you the best thing about JB is that James Brooks is my size. He played running back at 185 pounds.
That's right.
And to watch his work habits, man. I mean, the work habits, the way he worked. We worked out with him a couple of times during the off season, only a couple of times. And you and I were workout warriors. We worked out very hard and worked out very consistent. We worked out with JB a couple of times. We said we ain't gonna do that anymore. He was that intense with the workouts, but when he came to practice, when it came to football practice, he was the same way. Every single day, he catches the ball, they hand the ball to him, he'll sprint 20 yards, full speed, every day, every play. And I think that for me, as a young player, watching that and just admiring that, how does he do that every day? And then we worked out with him during the off season. I knew exactly how I was doing every day. I said, this guy is committed to being a pro. That's why I was telling you that we got lucky coming into this team. We had a chance to watch pros. Yeah. And so the guys that weren't about playing games, guys that weren't skimpy about their job, how they went about it, the off-season work they put in. We got very lucky. And the one guy that probably set the tone for us in that regard was James Brooks.
It was him. I watched him drag big linebackers up and down the field at 185 pounds. Yeah. I always said JB weighed 185 and he ran like he was 245.
He did.
I mean, you remember Thomas Everett. He was a Thorpe Award winner.
Oh, yeah.
Out of Baylor. He was playing for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember we would get in that 4 wide receiver, JB being the backfield behind Boomer, who was in shotgun. And they ran a draw out of 4 wides on 3rd and 10. And next thing you know, here comes it part like the Red Sea. JB came up through there, man, and pow! I mean, he knocked. All you saw was like Thomas Everett's feet go up in the air, man.
and Everett was hard.
And man, ran him over. And so now, late in the game, we need a first down to close out the game. We're up in Three River Stadium. We're playing up in Pittsburgh. They go with that same look. You and I on the sideline say, "Oh, they're getting ready to give it to JB." You know they get. Watch it.
Right.
JB came up through there and Thomas Everett got down. He ready to hit. And Thomas was an excellent player now.
Yes, he was.
This dude was a baller. I'm not throwing shade at Thomas Everett. And all JB, he got down and tackled. JB just hurdled it. Remember, he did the scissors move and went the distance and closed out the game with a touchdown. We were like, oh my God, this dude is something else. He was absolutely phenomenal. And I guess my most interesting story, you remember we were young players. We're trying to make the team. I think we had a scrimmage. And I came up, boom, I dropped him and tackled him. And oh my God, nobody does that to James Brooks, So you remember later that night, I think the next day when we're coming in to watch tape, he's stalking me, he's right here behind. As I'm walking in, I'm trying to ignore him, but you can't because he's breathing down my neck.
He was.
And I just looked at him. I said, what, man? What? Because, I'm trying to be deferential. I'm a rookie. He's the great James Brooks and whatnot. And he looked at me. He said, you closed your eyes. It was hilarious. And all I could say, I said, I hate to see what would have happened had I kept him open.
Yeah.
And you know that he just kind of laughed. He put his arm around me, and he didn't do that to nobody. You and I both
sure
know
did.
that.
He sure did. He did not do that. Normally he's hunting you down the next day in practice. Normally you're being hunted the next day.
He's trying to do that anyway.
That's too funny.
He'll hug you 1 minute, which he rarely did, but he was trying to run you over in practice every single day. This guy
ran over a few well-known guys in practice. If you remember, I mean, this dude was no joke. We don't talk about who he ran through guys in practice. I can tell you that. I saw it with my own 2 eyes.
I do remember. I recall one of our great players on defense. He's over there chirping. He was like, "I'm getting ready to run you over on this play. Sam, give me the ball." He told Sam Weiss to give him the ball. We're in practice. Sam Sam loves that. He's like, give JB the ball. Yeah. He gave JB the ball. JB came up through there. All you saw, wow. And man, he ran over one of our best players, man. Just like he said
yes, he did.
I was like,
and he meant it and he did it. He wasn't a game. James Brooks wasn't a game player in practice. He was serious in practice all the time. He wasn't laughing. Never smiling. You couldn't, some guys, you do so you over there messing around with a joke. Yeah. JB didn't joke in practice. He was not like that. And so, I think that he was like that because being 185 and being a smaller guy, he always was up against guys thinking they were going to take him out. What people don't know, he played with William Andrews and the great Joe Cribbs at University of Auburn.
That's right, he did.
People don't know that. Think about that. We're talking about 3 running backs that all played double digits seasons in the NFL. 3 of them.
All pro. They all were all
pro. That's right.
Pro Bowl players, all 3 of them. Yeah.
He didn't take the back seat to anyone, and I so love JB for that. Of all the guys that have gotten in this thing, I'm more happy for him because he is a guy who really worked for it. He worked for it. He wanted this kind of stuff. He when I say wanted, not in a selfish way, he worked hard to be recognized that he was a hard worker, and now he finally got it. I'm happy for him.
I remember him telling rookies, he would tell some players on the team, "Don't talk to me. You don't make enough plays to talk to me."
That's right. That's right.
He would
just
say
that.
You were like, JB, man, take it easy. I don't care about him, man. He ain't doing nothing around here to help us win. He would say that. And he did not mind holding people to account. And he was a great guy to have on your team, right? And,
he was an alpha guy, and he knew alpha. He understood if you were an alpha too.
Yeah. E.T. Eric Thomas, we appreciate you for joining us. We're running out of time, my friend. Great conversations with you.
Yes, indeed.
I look forward to seeing you at the Bengals practice in training camp this summer. How about that?
It's gonna be hot, but it's gonna be hot. It's gonna be hot, but I'll try to make it.
Hey man, you're not gonna melt. It's okay. Everyone, we want to thank you for joining us right here on the Believe in Bengals podcast. We'll see you next time. Thank you.